Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. The following content may involve explicit language and materials, so listener discretion is advised. Hey, everybody. We are switching things up a little bit this week. I have another special guest who is a little different from what I typically have on here. I would say if you guys listened to Matt's episode with me from from Planet 412, talking about the Dog Man, which again, if you haven't, go listen to it. It's 2 parts. It won't kill you. It's a really, really awesome encounter. But structurally, it's probably going to be similar to that. So if you were down with that, you'll probably be down with this. That being said, we're just going to go ahead and introduce him. It's Harley Owens. I hope you don't mind me using your last name. I met him from Bigfoot Reports and Data through the social media, because that's what we do. And, you know, he's an outdoorsman, Bigfoot researcher, so he has some encounters and stuff like that. So I have him on here. We're probably going to go over his encounters, or I don't know if it's plural or singular. Either way, we're going to go over it and just kind of talk Bigfoot, because I have not had Bigfoot on the show yet, which blows my mind that I don't have it. And by the way, my son, who I recorded with a little mini episode earlier today, was very upset because he thought that he was coming to talk to you about Bigfoot. And I told him he was not allowed on the Bigfoot episode. He's 12. He doesn't have the greatest attention span or knows how to work a mic. So that being said, Harley, I'm going to give you the floor. Just kind of let everybody know what you do, how you do it, anything that, like, now is your time to shine.
Well, I'm 23. I'll be 24 on Monday. I'm married. I got 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. I'm a lineman. I work on power lines. And, you know, if somebody would have told me 3 years ago that I would have been researching Bigfoot, you know, I'd have told them you were crazy. September 23rd, 2020, at that time, I was working with we were up there for 2 weeks. And the first week I was up there, it was me and a couple other guys, and we were talking to the owner of this sawmill, and he was telling us about this quote unquote bear that was up there in the sawmill. So I started asking the question. I was like, "Is it a pretty good sized bear?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's pretty good size." He said, "There's coyotes, snakes, and all that other stuff." He said, "There's far worse things in these mountains than that." And that kind of stuck with me, and I was like, "What in the hell is he talking about?" And I was joking around in my mind like a black panther or something, you know. And I didn't really have Bigfoot in the realm of possibility.
So he like old man Scooby-Dooed your ass. Like, you know, you pull up to this town and you got the old man in the rocking chair and he's like, "Let me tell you something, Sonny, you better watch out in the woods," you know, and then they go and something happens, right? So, all right, continue.
Going on that week, nothing really happened. We had the auction on a Saturday, and my boss asked me if I wanted to stay up there for another week to help people load their equipment and stuff that they bought, and I was like, yeah. So I stayed up there by myself, and he sent the other guys on to go get another auction ready. So that next day on a Sunday, it was raining, and I wasn't going to sit in the damn hotel all day. So I went out to the job site, and I was getting stuff ready, you know, for when people would come out throughout the week and pick up their stuff. Well, I get done, and I'm just walking around, looking around the edge of the woods, and I find a couple of sets of tracks, and I'm just like, somebody's walking around out here barefooted in this shit. And I'm just like, that's Bigfoot. I jokingly said, that's Bigfoot.
Famous last words.
Yeah. And then Monday, nothing happened. And Tuesday, nothing happened. But Wednesday, it was September 23rd, 2020. That was the day that rocked my world forever. So that morning, I had a guy come in there about 8 o'clock, and that was the only guy I had in there that day. I got his trailer loaded down, and he left. Nobody else came in there for the rest of that day, so I was just sitting in the skid steer, and I get out of it, and I go over to the service truck to get a sandwich and a Coca-Cola out of my cooler. Well, I pull them out, and I go to take a bite out of my sandwich, and I hear this growlish grunt, and I'm just like, oh shit, that's that bear. So I turned and looked over to the wood line. I didn't see nothing. Well, I turned back to the truck, and I was going to pick up my coat and try to take a drink of my coat. I heard it again, and I looked, and I seen something moving up along this cliff, and what the hell is that? And I was like, that's that bear. Because all I could see was the black moving through the brush. And I just kept sitting there looking. Well, I looked down and I looked back up and I seen it. It was leaning out and looking at me, and I was just like, "Oh my God, that's a Bigfoot! People ain't full of shit. These things are real."
Oh my
And this,
gosh.
this thing's looking at me, and I'm looking at it. It's probably about 70, 75 yards away from me. And the only thing I knew of at the time was to take a picture of this damn thing.
Someone finally took a picture of the Bigfoot instead of just ran.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I knew of to do because I was like, if I just try and take a video of this thing's gonna be gone. Well, I took a picture of it, and as soon as I took a picture of this thing, my phone was just drained of everything it had. Like it didn't have power, and this thing was still looking at me. It was like it was looking right through me, and I was just like, I didn't know what the hell it is. So I just kept staring at the thing. Well, it turned around and it went on up the mountain. And I was just like, oh my God, I just seen a damn Bigfoot. Nobody's going to believe me. And I was trying to get my phone. I jumped in the truck and I was trying to get my phone to come back on because I thought it died, but I had 70% battery, so I don't know how it just gets drained, quote unquote, but I'll get on the end of that here shortly. And so my phone comes back on and I look and I've got the picture. It's a perfect shot of this creature leaning out and looking at me. And I've got it posted on my TikTok. And it's several other podcasts that I've been on. People love that picture. Right?
I bet. Because, I mean, you don't typically get a lot of actual documentation, I guess, that you could say, or anything that even remotely looks. I subscribe to a lot of these groups on Facebook that they do talk about Bigfoot, and people can share their, videos or whatever. And it seems like almost every time I'm looking at it and I'm like, where? Where are you seeing? Like, there's nothing there. One, I mean, it even like circled it in red, and I'm like, I see nothing, man.
Well, that we'll get into that shortly. There's another side to these. I call them beings. They're not an ape, but initially that was my first thought. Though whenever I seen my first one, but after I seen this thing, it was getting dusty dark, and it was probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock. They started yelling and screaming, making all kinds of crazy noises, and I've got them all recorded. Initially, thought it was just one because it was just echoing throughout the whole valley, and I was just like, "That's unreal." I mean, it's not a coyote, it's not an elk, and it's unlike anything I had ever heard. So that happened the Wednesday. I saw the creature, and I got the first set of vocalizations from it. Thursday came around, and I get done doing what I'm doing. I had a couple of guys in there, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to walk around here over at the edge of the woods and see what I can see. This thing came down from where it was at yesterday, and it had a trail worn out to where I was at, and I found a perfect trackway, and I've got a video of that trackway as well. I mean, and the stride in between each tracks, I'm 6'6", and I couldn't take a
Holy
step like
shit. Seriously?
that.
I don't even think I come up to your armpit.
I tried the steps that this thing did, and I couldn't do it. It was remarkable. But going later on into that evening, they started hollering again. But it sounded like there was more than one, but I wasn't 100% for sure. Friday came around, and I was leaving to come home. This happened in Virginia, close to the Kentucky border, a town called Pound. But I went to a drive-in diner, and I was like, if anybody's going to have answers for this, I'm like, it's going to be
I love it.
somebody. If somebody's going to have answers for this, it's going to be some old timers sitting in this
Yep.
drive-in.
Yep.
So I get me something to eat, and I'm sitting there, and I see three older guys sitting over here at this table. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go strike up conversation, and then I'm going to drop the bomb on them.
Yep.
So I started talking to them, asking how their day was doing and stuff, and I was like, y'all ever seen anything strange in these mountains? And they kind of looked at each other, and they said, what did you see? And I said, this. And I pulled out my phone, and I showed them the picture, and they looked back and forth at each other, and they said, that's a devil monkey. And I was like, a devil monkey? I was like, so that's a Bigfoot? And they said, yeah, that's a Bigfoot. And they said, there's different names for them. They call them devil monkeys, mountain giants, wood boogers, anything. And I was just like, oh my God. And I let them listen to the sounds that I recorded, and they was like, yeah, they'll do that just certain times of the year, and this is the time of year that they do it. I was just like,
Lucky you.
that's wild. But, going after that encounter, I shared with a select few, my mom and dad and my family and friends, and they all thought I was crazy, even though I sure thing, and I had pictures of the footprints, I had videos of the footprints, I had the
Yeah, you had like hard
time,
evidence.
everything, man. That's all I knew of to do was, because if I didn't have that, nobody was going to believe me, and for 3 years, I never shared my story. And this past year, I was like, I can't do this no more. I gotta tell this story and raise awareness. So I go and I go be on Jeremiah Byron's podcast, the Bigfoot Society. And that was when my door opened. And I had people calling me left and right, want me on their shows. And I was just, okay. So, anyways, after that encounter happened, I stopped deer hunting and I stopped fishing. I stopped everything.
I don't imagine you'd want to go out there after that.
That was something that wasn't supposed to be there. That's something that's not supposed to be a part of reality. And
maybe you weren't supposed to be there. He's probably thinking the same thing about you. He's like, what the hell's this guy doing here?
I stopped deer hunting. I stopped fishing. And this past Thanksgiving, I took it upon myself, well, I'm going to go back deer hunting. Well, lo and behold, I kill a deer, my first deer in 3 years. And I was like, you know what? If I can do this, I can overcome my fear and go out and look for these darn things. I'm happy to say that I've had 2 more sightings, and my second sighting was December 14th, 2023. But I didn't start doing my field research until December 7th.
That's still like pretty soon.
Yeah, 3 years it was a long 3 years.
I have so many questions. So I might intersect here just to ask you a few questions about your first encounter, but before we move on to another one, because I don't want to get them all jumbled later. Okay, one, you said you're on this trail, right? So you hear this damn thing, you're on the trail, you see the evidence. Were you at all nervous when you realized that you are standing, like it could be anywhere around you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because those tracks they were fresh from earlier that morning.
And when you say you work on power lines, do you primarily work in like the bucket trucks, or do you actually climb the poles? That's the reason I'm asking. Both? Okay. Have you ever been before and after? Prior to this encounter, did you ever feel like there was any reason? Like, so I'm just picturing you're climbing this damn pole, you're like freestyle climbing, and you're at the top.
I wasn't alignment at this time.
Okay, because I was just thinking, so forget that one. But going forward, have you ever been, like I said, you're climbing, you're not in the bucket truck, you're just climbing, and you're at the top, and did you ever get weird, eerie feelings or like get on edge thinking they might be around and you're just stuck up there? Like what happens if one shows up and you're stuck up there?
Well, I never really put that into consideration. I never really did.
Sorry.
I tried to put that encounter in my past, and then I realized, I need to share my story, and I never really took that into consideration.
So, did you when you found the footprint and you got the picture and video of it, did you have anything on you that you could use as a comparison, I guess, so to speak?
Well, I had a size 12 boot, and they were probably 3 or 4 inches longer than what my foot was.
Holy crap!
It was double the width of what my foot was. It was insane, like a giant. It was like literally a giant human foot.
You mentioned that it clearly didn't sound like it was just one. Like it clearly sounded like there was multiple. Now, I'm curious because again, I've not heard anything personally. When they were, I guess, seemingly communicating, were they the same kind of pitch, or was it maybe one was a little higher or lower, or?
They were all different. I had that audio actually sent off. I had a spectrogram done of it, and all of the vocalizations ranged all the way up to 2,000 hertz. A human can only reach up to 200 hertz. It was remarkable. And somebody did confirm there was at least 3 or 4 different ones.
Because what I was wondering was, if, I guess, different age groups or different genders, or maybe they were communicating different messages, but I was thinking like if there was four different octaves and four different ones talking, maybe it was one was maybe a female, one was a male, one was maybe a kid or whatnot.
They definitely utilize family groups 100%. And I don't know what that instance was. I don't know if they were trying to just get me the hell out of there or
Well,
what.
it might have been like a horny howl. You don't know. Like, hey, and you kind of like, when you got the buck chasing the doe, and I mean, it has absolutely no idea what's going on around it. It's just going for it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so when it came around, and I know it was fairly close because I only know whenever I did my shooting practice with my 12 gauge, I primarily shot about 100 yards. So I could probably visualize about 70. When you were looking at it, do you have any details as far as like the face structure or anything? Was it more human, more, I guess, ape overlooking?
It was honestly a mix of both.
Okay.
It was, I couldn't really tell because, I mean, 70 yards is still, they're pretty, you could see the hair hanging off of it from where it was leaning out. And, in the photograph, you can see the sun shining through the hairs of this thing leaning out and looking at me. And I've actually had that photo enhanced in different ways, and you can actually see its face. And one of the images that there was somebody took it from my page and they ran it through some software on their computer, and they said this thing wasn't black, and I'm like, well, it sure as hell looked black, and sure enough, and this thing was reddish brown.
I hear that a lot. That Bigfoot is primarily like when the sun hits it, they actually do kind of give, kind of like me. And then they're just darker, primarily because they're, in the shade or whatnot. But I was just wondering too, because I've heard of a couple different like face, I guess, I don't know if I want to call it styles, but I guess appearances. One of which is more like the face is kind of like hairless. But there's some that say that the whole face is like that hairy dog man, that actual genetic defect that makes your face hairy. So I just was curious as to whether or not it had a beard, I guess, so to speak.
In that enhanced photo, it definitely looked like it didn't have hair on its face. But my second encounter with one, it definitely didn't have hair on its face.
Oh my gosh, I can't even. I think you might probably get into it later, but I am interested about your phone dying. There's all these different ideas of what Bigfoot is. Is it an actual animal or creature? Is it an alien? Is it interdimensional? Is it paranormal? Like, what is it? And really, out of all of that, the only thing I know of that will drain the battery and stuff would be something that's more paranormally based. And that is why I will not go hunt Bigfoot or go in the woods.
Well, I know. Well, we're going to go down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
So you better buckle up.
Buckle up, Alice. Let's go.
Like I was telling you, my first initial thought, there's some kind of ape, there's some kind of relic, hominid or something. Well, when I started doing this, I'm out here hiking and stuff. My first day out doing the hikes, and I never seen anything, but I utilize a back trail camera to record behind me, and that's how I know that some of them aren't around. I'll go through my videos frame by frame, and sure enough, when one peeks out, I'll see it. December 7th, nothing happened. I came back 3 days later, December 11th. I'm hiking back into my area, and this fence post sticking straight out of the middle of it, this old fence post, is a feather sticking right up in the middle of it. And I'm just like, what's the odds of a feather falling off a bird and landing right in the center of that fence
Yeah,
post?
that's kind of strange.
So I'm standing there looking at it. I pick it up and I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden I hear a thud behind me to my right, and I look, and there's this quartz rock that rolls up and hits me by my boot. I've still got it in, and I've got it plastic baggied up because I'm going to try and get it sent off for DNA and stuff.
Yeah.
And that day also, I gifted a jar of peanut butter, and I left the lid off of it, and I put a stick in it, and I showed them that the peanut butter was good. So I was eating some of the peanut butter, showing them it was good. So I put the stick back in it, and I left. Well, December 14th is when I come back, and I have my wife with me, and we're hiking up the trail, and sure enough, the jar of peanut butter was gone, and the lid was too. And I was like, okay, All right.
Damn.
Yeah. And so we're hiking the
Sorry.
trail
I'm
that
just having this. I just watched Meet Joe Black when he's like obsessed with eating the peanut butter. The guy who's death. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just watched that for the first time like last week. Maybe you should name him Joe.
so we're going up through there, and I'm putting out apples and stuff. I put them up as high as I can reach. It's probably about 8 foot. I put them up as high as I can get. That way, I know it's them getting them and
Yeah.
not something. And we're coming back down the trail, and my wife says, "Look at that." She said, "That looks like something out of a war movie." I was like, "What?" She said, "That." So I go over and look, and I believe it was a hunting blind. There's two logs laying side by side, and there was another log laid across it, and you could see where something had been laying in there. So I stepped it off the best I could, size 12 boot, and I step by step by step, and I figured it, whatever it was laying there was 8.5 foot tall.
Oh shit.
Huge area, and like the leaves were still matted down from where this thing was laying there. So I was like, okay.
GTFO,
like,
man. I wouldn't want to get busted hanging around his crib.
Yeah, so I told my wife, I said, go back over to the trail. I said, stand right there. I said, listen for me. I said, if I start screaming, I said, run. And I said, listen. She said, what? I said, listen over this way. I said, there's something walking over there. She said, yeah, I hear it. She said, what is it? I said, it's probably a bear. But I said, look, I'm gonna walk over here and check. I said, stay right there. So I'm going back through there, and I'm pushing the branches, get out of my way, and all of a sudden I come to this big game trail right in this area. There's a big forked tree right in front of me, and the game trail goes to my left and to my right. And all of a sudden, something in my head said, look right. Well, I looked right, and I catch a glimpse of this Bigfoot going in behind the tree, and I'm like, okay, I seen you. I know where you're at. So I turn and look, and I'm turning and I'm facing the tree where it's at. And it comes out from around the tree where I get the full profile of this thing.
Oh my gosh, I would die.
And it crouched down, and there was a bush right there, and it peeks its head out through the bush to look at it.
Oh.
I think it was the same one that made that. It was easily over 8 feet, and it was just sitting there looking at me, and I'm just like, okay. Well, almost instantly to my left, there was a really loud, and then right behind me, there was something stomping in place, and I was like,
oh my God, you're surrounded.
I'm surrounded by three. I didn't see the other two, but I know they were there. I heard them.
Yeah.
One made a big loud snap of a branch, and then there was one behind me stomping. So I'm like, okay. I said, I'm leaving. So I go back to the trail. I said, my wife, let's go. So we got the hell out of there. That was a lot closer than what my first encounter was.
Oh my gosh. Okay. One, I would have pissed my pants. I mean, at least you're like almost 7 foot. So you're like getting up there. I mean, you're almost up there with him. I'm like way the hell down here. I mean, there's a difference when you're like almost eye level versus belly button level, man. I mean, there's just total different intimidation technique. Not to mention, what the hell did your wife say? Because I'm pretty sure if my husband was like, hey, babe, I'm going to go check over here because I think we got some Bigfoot, whatever. I'd have been like hell you are. We're going home.
Yeah, she didn't really believe in it at first.
Oh, okay.
Showing the pictures and stuff that I've got of them now, and she's like, okay, they're real.
Yeah. Like I just can't even imagine just being there and be like, I'd be like, you're leaving me here defenseless just to take off and chase the, like, what the fuck? No, I don't think so. I'm coming with you. And then I would have probably, we would have gone and we would have been surrounded and I would have pushed you forward and said, take him. And then I would have ran.
Yeah, that's probably why I left her at the trail.
So you saw the two or the logs, I guess there's 3 logs that were together that kind of made, I'm just picturing almost like a deformed teepee that had enough for one obviously laying down.
It was flat on the ground. The 2 logs was laying flat on the ground. There was another log laid across the top of it. And it was laid up underneath of it.
So I wonder if there were more of those around, because I mean, if there's 3 of them there with you, if they were a family unit, they would obviously have a bigger teepee, right? But if they weren't a family unit and they were just kind of there, I mean, maybe they had a teepee somewhere else, or what? We're just going to call it a teepee from now on.
They make nests, and I found one.
Ooh.
Just recently, yes.
Oh, because I was
So,
also in my head picturing three Bigfoot stacked on top of each other in this teepee because there's only one lay down mark and they had to have laid on top of each other.
I think that was a hunting blind. Not the only one that I found.
Well, he was sleeping on the job.
It may have been. Uh,
I can't say anything. I do know people that they go out and they're in their blind or they're in their stand. As long as they're hooked with their safety cord, they just take a little snooze.
Hey, I've done it. Hey, we're all guilty. I've done it. So, December 31st, I go out and I'm hiking through an area that I'm not really familiar with and I haven't checked it out, but it's still close to the area that I've been going. And all of a sudden, this voice goes through my head that's not my conscience, and it said Jerome.
Said what?
And I'm like, Jerome?
Like a name?
I thought it was a name, and I'm
Do
just
you
like,
know
what
a
the hell?
Jerome? That's kind of a weird name.
No, and I'm just like, what the hell's Jerome? And I walk maybe about 15, 20 more yards, and I find it. There's this huge X made out of trees. You know, one of them naturally leans that way, but this other tree is broken, and it's placed right up against this other one to make an X. But the crazy thing is, I thought it was an X, but as I got to looking at it, it made an A because there was another
Oh,
one laid across at the bottom of it, and it makes an A. It was some of the craziest shit I had
that
ever
is,
seen. Oh
yeah,
my
that's
god!
weird. Well, and I've seen some videos, whether or not I believe them, I don't know, but I have seen some that appear to have some sort of large Bigfoot looking thing where it's caught on video, literally ripping a tree out of the ground and just like dragging it off. This is the one, like almost like it's Christmas tree hunting, only it's not a Christmas tree. And it's like, whoop, here we go. And then it just takes off. And I think I saw a couple videos like that. And I was like, what the hell are they doing with that? But that makes sense. I guess that's what they do with it.
I think they use those for like markers to other their kind. You know, like hey, this is our territory, or this way to water. There's probably different
Yeah.
meanings for different. I did find an arch that day too, where the tree was arched, and this tree, it was actually on top of a tree that was brought from somewhere totally different because I could not find where that tree was broken, and the arch was made perfectly with that. And I'm just like, that's obviously
Huh.
Bigfoot sign. That's not from anywhere around in this area, and they bent this tree into a perfect arc.
Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, nothing else could do that. I mean, nothing else could carry it anyway, right? I can't imagine anything out there that could do that.
No, no. So that leads to January 7th, 2024. A group of investigators I'm a part of, North Carolina Investigates. We do a podcast. So I invited them up. It was Robert Effler and his wife and George Lunsford. He's the author and he's wrote several books, Monsters of the World and a couple other books. And I invited them up and we had never met before. You know, I was on their podcast to tell my story, and then we became close
Yep.
friends.
Yep.
And you know, I invited them up. I was like, "Come check this place out." George had never seen a Bigfoot before, and Robert and his wife had. So we're going on through there. We're finding all kinds of fresh signs because there's swish breaks. It just happened earlier in that morning. I mean, they were super fresh, and there was no wind for a couple of days. And I was like, this is fresh. Like they've done this, and we're going through there and stuff, and we find this one area, and it looks like kids have been running around in there playing. You know, there's
Yep.
human like tracks, and it's sleeting and snowing and raining on us. What else do you need? I was like, it's 29, 30 degrees.
Yep.
That's really like the juvenile Bigfoots in here running around playing. And like there's trees broken and stuff. Like, I was like, they're in here playing. So we're going around through this area some more. We definitely get the feeling that we're being watched. And we come back onto the main trail and we're coming back out. We stop at an area where I've captured some of them on film in these big laurel thickets up on the hill. I stopped. I said, Robert, I said, you and your wife go on down the main trail here. I said, me and George would dip off over into this holler and we'll work our way back to the main trail. So they took a walkie and we took a walkie, and me and George go down and they kept on the main trail. So me and George talking back and forth, and we're staying in radio contact with Robert. And sure enough, we get going through this area and we find these huge, just the trees are just broke off, probably about 8-10 foot up. I was like, this is a trail that they're using because the trail was probably about 3 or 4 foot wide.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, there's a bear using this too because we found a couple of piles of bear poop, and I was like, well, we're probably gonna run into a bear. Well, we're going.
I mean, either way, it doesn't sound like a good time.
Either way, it wasn't going to end well. So the holler runs straight down this way, and we're up on one side of the holler, and across we could see across to the other side. And we're coming down, and all of a sudden I get the feeling that we're being watched. And I look out of my peripheral vision, and I see something black moving to go in behind a tree. And I just stopped dead in my tracks. I said, George, I said, there's one right across from us. I said, he's right over there behind that tree. And the only thing you could see of him was his head sticking out from around the tree.
Yeah.
It looked like a knot on the side of the tree. I said, there's a Bigfoot right there. He said, he told me this after this it had happened. He's like, I thought you were full of shit. He said, I thought it was just a shadow. But I said, stand right here. And I said, I'm going to walk towards you. I didn't walk 5 or 10 feet, and I stepped on this branch, and it sounded like a dang gun going off. And this Bigfoot, he reaches out, and he looked almost like what my first encounter did. He literally had his arm wrapped around this tree, and he leaned out and looked because he was looking for me. He couldn't see me because I was out of his line of sight.
Yeah.
But George just said, "Oh shit, that's a Bigfoot!" And I was like, yeah. He was all excited and swore up. He said, "Let's chase it." I was
No.
I said, okay. So we started chasing after this damn thing. And the brush didn't really look as thick as what it did from that other side. But I mean, we were pushing through the brush just to get where it was at. And we get to the tree where it was at. And right there at the base of that tree in the moss, there was a perfect footprint in the moss. I mean, the only thing that was missing was the big toe, but you could see the other 4 toes and everything else.
Yeah, which it might have been like that because especially if it was stepping like to reach out. I know sometimes when I lean, I'll actually, instead of digging my big toe in, sometimes I'll pull my big toe up. I don't know why I do that. It's just a reflex I have. And it's just a weird thing. It's almost like my brain trying to keep its balance. I don't know why I do it, but that might have been what it was doing. Maybe I'm part Sasquatch.
You could definitely see the 4 toes, but the big toe wasn't there. It was probably about an 18-inch track. But that's not the biggest one we found. The biggest track that we found from that day, it was 25 inches.
Holy cheese whiz.
I don't think it was a slide track, but I'm almost positive track that one left because it almost looked like it was slid, but I don't think it did because it was just didn't look like it did. I was almost positive that's how big it was, but that was a different one. That one that we had seen, I think it was over 9 foot because there was a branch that was broke where the top of his head was.
Yeah.
So it was really special to share that moment with him, having not seen a Bigfoot. Hey, I'm telling you, to this day, from January 7th, he will bring it up every day and talk about it.
I'd probably have a different viewpoint. I sure as hell wouldn't have chased it. I mean, are you guys crazy? Like, what did you plan on doing when you caught it?
Well,
were you armed? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So at least you had weapons. Okay. So now I don't feel as bad, but still.
Yeah, it was definitely not a bright idea. Don't recommend it, but we got lucky. We didn't get attacked or nothing. We got super lucky.
Yeah, well, maybe that one was a female. I mean, that would make more sense because the men are generally, well, just in the animal kingdom in general, males are typically more aggressive, more territorial, and they're more likely to fight you. Whereas the women are more standoffish, kind of, they'd rather look and report and not actually attack. I feel like maybe if there was, they've not been horrible encounters, right? I mean, they're super awesome, but there's nothing aggressive, really. I mean, they kind of warn you, which is, everything does that, right? Hell, I'm all, I can't say I'm all bark and all bite, but, and I'll think about it later, but I won't feel bad. But something like that where it's nothing really aggressive, I guess you could say.
I think they toy with me. They test me to see what I'll do.
But me personally, I wouldn't want to come toe to toe with one of these because I think, to me, I'm struggling with exactly where they originate from. but they are not some Harry and the Henderson bullshit. These motherfuckers are like, they could be mean. They are monsters.
Well, I always say, thank God somebody else says that. I'm like, they're not the friendly Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah,
They're
these
not.
things will rip you to pieces if they need to, and they
Well,
will not hesitate.
I will say this: some of them are good, but not all of them.
Yeah, it's kind of like everything, though. I mean, think of like a dog, right? There's
Yeah, exactly.
dogs. We'll use pit bulls, all right? We're going to pick
Oh,
on
yeah,
pit
that's
bulls
like a perfect
because
example.
because there are pit bulls that are, say they're strays, their owners dumped them, they were fight dogs. These things are fucking killers. They will eat you alive. I have a pit bull mix in my house that is the biggest pussy in the world. I mean, he is all about me. Now, granted, if you came at me, he'd probably eat you, but it's just because it's me. But generally, I mean, he is like a couch potato, real goofy, super sweet. Wouldn't hurt a fly unless he had to. Wild animals as a whole, they're all intact, and unless there's some weird accident, they're all intact. And the males do tend to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe not all the time, but it's like that genetic program. Like that is either a male, like a breeding aged male, or a mama bear with a cub or a pup or whatever the hell that baby's called. Those are the two you don't want to screw with. Could be like a little old lady Sasquatch or a little old man Sasquatch. And he doesn't know. He's like, I'm just out here for a walk. I don't know what's going on. Like, fuck it. Or it might be a kid or whatever. He's like, oh, hey, look at these weird things over here. Why don't you have a bunch of hair? I think they all kind of do have different personalities, just like they would a pack in any other, animal kingdom situation. But I
Yeah,
think
100%.
they will destroy you if they need to.
Oh yeah, they definitely run in family groups. I definitely feel like because that nest that I found just last week that definitely made me see because I mean there's 8 or 10 different spots where they were laying in there. You know these huge beds. They weren't beds. They weren't elk beds. These were literally looked like big humans who were laying in them.
Now, what I do think would be interesting to find out would be if they function similar to, say, a big cat, where if the big cat has a litter of kittens and there are two males, she will then chase the males off like immediately, like fuck those guys, because they cannot survive in the territory where there is a dominant male. They have to find their own space or they will be eaten.
Well,
So I don't know if they're like that or if they are just kind of like, oh, hey.
I don't think they're like that. I think they're they're a lot closer to us than what people think.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely one head honcho, the
Whew.
big male. You're going to be one big head
Yeah.
honcho, and if anybody comes up against him, they're either going to be kicked out of the clan to go
Yep.
start their own, so on and so forth. But they definitely operate family groups.
Or if they function as monogamous, or is it kind of like Pride of Lions where you have the one big boss male who gets to just hit every woman in town regardless of whether or not it's his brother, sister, aunt, whatever, and then as the other ones grow they have to then fight for that position if they want to breed? Or I wonder if it is more like they kind of pair off. Like there might be, because some places do. There is an alpha female and an alpha male, and it's like that's the king and queen, and then you kind of have everybody else that's just kind of there, and they just kind of like pair up. I don't know. I wonder if it's structured like that, or if it's like one per like zone.
I think it's either one or two of those options for sure. Either one of those definitely makes sense for sure.
Okay. Are you ready for more questions that are gonna like really get crazy? All right.
I'm gonna blow your mind.
I I brought it up already, but I'm going to ask directly what your opinion is. Do you think these are actual earthbound creatures that have just not been able to, they've somehow managed to be elusive and leave no remnants of any kind anywhere that anybody could actually substantially hold in their hand? Or do you believe one of the other more fringe area beliefs as to their origin and or transportation?
Well, like I said, when I see my first one, I initially thought that they were ape, but the more I started doing this and looking for them and stuff, what really solidified my belief on what they are is I made a cross and I placed it on one of their tree tree structures, and I came back a couple of days later, and they destroyed the cross. So that
Oh,
solidified my belief that these creatures are descendants of the Nephilim.
okay, a couple things there. I'm about to step on some toes. All right, everybody, I'm going to step on your toes. If the cross was an issue for it, it would not have been able to physically remove it itself, I feel. Think, this is a horrible example, but like a vampire, the vampire can't touch the cross because it burns his hands, right? Or you ward off certain things and it can't touch it. If you're possessed, supposedly the cross will burn into your skin because you can't handle it. So do you think that it could have possibly have been just a matter of this mother hairless son of a bitch graffitied my shit and then like marked it out like out of anger, like you asshole?
When I came back and it was broken, and that human hybrid. So if you go and look at the Sasquatch Genome Project, they have the DNA. They have a genome for these things, and the mitochondrial DNA of a Bigfoot is a human mother, and the nuclear DNA is something unknown to science.
Well, according to my TikTok live visitor today, that means that it is all Sasquatch are my children because I am the reincarnation of the mother of all children. I'm not really sure how to take that. I think considering I might be birthed, or I don't know. Do I just inherit the kids? Or is it like a paperless adoption? I mean, I don't know what's going on here. I thought the Nephilim were more like giants. I guess they didn't specify hair. They just said giants. So I guess it could technically be right? So that makes sense.
Well, over time they could have adapted to become smaller, and it didn't just think it just resulted in the Bigfoot. I think what we know is Dogman or is from the same lineage because the fallen angels didn't just procreate with human women; they did it with animals as well.
Okay, first things first. As far as Dogman, if Dogman is Nephilim based somewhat, that could explain possibly what is that one in Egypt? The one that guards Anubis? Yeah. If Anubis was the spirit, I guess, out here porking the people, that could make a Dogman, right? So that would make sense. And then maybe, here we go. Okay. This is going to be like a serious pull out of my ass here. There was another one that had the head of a bird, right? I don't know what the hell this thing's called. I really need to go learn more about the Egyptians. But there was the one with the bird head, right? Maybe that's what made Mothman.
That very well could be, I mean, nobody is an expert in this. I mean, let's be honest. I'm an amateur in this. I've only been doing Bigfoot research for 3 months. I mean, the more I do it, the more deeper I get in the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's just there's so many options out there as far as combinations and things that could explain it. So, do you completely? We're gonna come back. Sorry again. If they're oh my god,
Nephilim.
Thank you. There's a lot of people that think that angels are alien. So would you then think that they're possibly extraterrestrial?
I don't have an answer for that. I know that these creatures are a lot more capable of what people make them out to be. I've experienced, the cloaking. I had something run by me that was invisible. I don't have any explanation for that whatsoever. I could hear it coming and it just blew right by me and like the leaves and stuff was moving. It was literally like something out of a Predator movie.
That might have been a spook. That might have been a legitimate spook. So I get those. Things will touch me and move stuff around and it gets bananas. But you throw me anywhere near a Bigfoot? Hell no. Like that is not my forte.
Somewhere in the range of 500 to 1,000 pounds, that's a lot of brute force.
Squish me like a bug.
People say that they see Bigfoot with like the orbs and UFOs and all that stuff. All of it's connected. It's all connected, and the more you look into it, the deeper down the rabbit hole you can go.
Yeah.
I never experienced any like paranormal stuff in my house until I started researching Bigfoot. I'll have stuff move and I'll have stuff fall, and I'll have the feeling like somebody talking to me, and there's nobody there. It's very strange. these creatures, they have a ability called infrasound. You know, it's a
Mm-hmm.
sound above our hearing. You know, and I've experienced that. You know, one time I was hiking and I got hit by it, and man, it brought me to my knees. Like I felt like I was going to throw up. You know, it was
Throw
just like
up.
a
Yep.
major headache. It was crazy.
Yep. So that is how I feel when there is a lot of activity happening around me and they are really like fucking with me. Just weird stuff, which is why I specifically will not hunt for Bigfoot because I don't want to see Bigfoot. I am
You
more than
know,
happy to hear everybody else's stories, but not actually have it myself. But then again, I also wonder if Bigfoot either puts off and or receives the same type of frequency, which makes me feel like I would be like a giant beacon in the fucking woods. And I really don't want to be that for Bigfoot.
you know, I have not physically seen a portal or nothing like that yet, but you know, I definitely feel like they're able to go in and out of this reality, so to speak. You know, they can be here and then they can be somewhere else. You know, I think when I hear the stories about the Bigfoot and the orbs, you know, this may be ridiculous, but you know, I think that Bigfoot, they can physically be here and then they can spiritually be here in the orb.
So I've also heard a lot of encounters where they feel that the Bigfoot that isn't like they're physically seeing, like sometimes they are looking right at the Bigfoot. It is almost, I guess, using telepathy to communicate with them because they're looking
Yeah,
right at them. They can
mindful,
hear them. They can hear them
mindful.
talking. Yeah, but their mouths aren't moving.
Telling me, you know, you got a gift, you know, hitting Bigfoot and all this other stuff's interested in you. I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, they are for sure. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse yet, but
Yeah, it's like and stuff like that happens all the time. And so I kind of feel like that's a lot of it. And as far as I really don't know that much about Dogman per se. I know you mentioned him earlier.
yeah,
I
there's
mean, I had Matt on here, and his encounter was absolutely like astounding. I would have crapped myself like 3 times over. I probably would have died of a freaking coronary. I mean, I would have died.
I will say that the dog man that I had an encounter with was much, much closer than any of the Bigfoot that I was.
Yeah. And like with Matt, so Matt, when I posted all those photos, whenever I released his episodes, if you go, it's on, well, I think all of my social media, I put it on all of them. Those pictures that I posted with his episodes are ones that he actually worked with an artist for months to get it just right. So everything that you see in those photos is, I mean, to the absolute best of his ability, exactly what he saw. And this thing was right there. I mean, it did not hesitate. I mean, it came for them. It did not.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Oh, sorry. You froze. You crossed the threshold. I have time to talk while we're waiting if you guys want to join me. I don't know how long I should wait to see if he comes back on. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. If you wouldn't mind, please take a moment and rate and review the show wherever you're listening. I know it might not seem like much, but it greatly helps the show by allowing us to be found more easily when other listeners search for us. If you have a chance, head on over to www.patreon.com/cryptids, creeps, and conspiracy and become a patron. Members of the Big Show tier get bonus materials, personalized shout-outs, access to the private Discord server, and video versions of episodes, both regular and members only, that are raw and unedited. So they're always a good time. As an added thank you to the Big Show patrons, we also are going to be giving out custom stickers and mini prints after 3 months of membership. I'm currently offering a 7-day free trial, so head on over and see how awesome being a member can be. Before you go, click the link in the description and grab yourself or someone you know some of the self-designed merch or make a donation to help keep the show going and fund future events and investigations. T-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and magnets can be found on the TeePublic site, and they have sales at least once a month. I believe it is 30 or 35% off. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly how much, but keep checking back and get them when they're discounts. They have $16 tees, and it's great. For handmade crochet items such as Nessie, Mothman, aliens, Fresno night crawlers, and the little ghost or a big ghost, as well as pants, swimwear, the best tumblers I have found yet as far as merch is concerned, dresses, office supplies, and more. Visit the Square merch store. You can also follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Threads, and TikTok. If you have any questions, topic recommendations, or personal encounters, please don't hesitate to send them in to cryptidscreepsandconspiracy@gmail.com or submit them through the contact form at www.cryptidscreepsandconspiracy.com. I would love to hear from you and share your experience on a special listener episode. Just make sure to specify that I have permission to add your encounter to the show, and let me know whether you would like to have your real name or an alias to maintain confidentiality. Thank you again so much for all your support, and I'll see you next time, my friend.